What is up, guys? Mike Wang here, back with another video on crypto. Today I'm going to be talking about the probability of Ethereum potentially reaching $6,000. Yes, you heard that right, $6,000 as a conservative estimate. I'll be going over some of the fundamentals and the technicals of Ethereum. So before we begin, please make sure to like this video and smash the subscribe button as well. So let's begin by taking a look at two posts that I uploaded last year. So this is a post that I uploaded in September of 2020. And as we can see here, there is a clear phase of accumulation with the RSI forming higher lows, which indicates bullish momentum behind the price action. And what we can see here is how there's strong resistance between the $355 range to the $400 range. What we witnessed during this phase is a breakout taking place above this resistance zone and a pullback to retrace this level. So this was a very clear indication that a bullish trend was intact and a bullish rally was about to begin, which is why I packed a lot of Ethereum at these levels. And luckily, I was right about my analysis. Another thing we can look at is a post I made in November of 2020, which demonstrates the market cycles and the sentiment of retail traders based on the price action we see in each phase. So I'm a huge believer of market cycles, and what happens in a normal cycle is we have a peak, which is the point of maximum financial risk. Then there's a phase of contraction marked as a bear trend, and when it bottoms out, that's considered a trough, which is the point of maximum financial opportunity. And then since it's a cycle, of course, it starts expanding again, but then up to the point of the previous all-time high level, it's considered a phase of recovery. And then if we break out of the previous all-time high levels, that's considered a phase of prosperity until we meet another point of peak and the trend starts dropping again. And for each levels of price action, what we can see here is the sentiment that people feel. So it all starts with disbelief, but then we rally upwards, and this gives a lot of people hope, right? And then there's and then that sentiment changes to optimism, which then changes to belief, then to thrill and euphoria as it tops out. Now, after it tops out, the correction doesn't happen severely. It happens in waves, right? So it goes down, it bounces up, it goes down again, bounces even smaller, and then goes down even more severely. So it's not like everything drops 99% overnight. It slowly bleeds out. So the sentiment changes as well. So it goes from euphoria to complacency to anxiety, denial, panic, and then the last two phases of capitulation and anger. And what happens here is a lot of the people who racked up their bags at the belief, thrill, and euphoria phase mostly sell their bags when they panic and the price capitulates. And during the anger phase, they're in denial of everything and they say, I'm never going to trade this asset again, which is actually where the smart money starts kicking in, because it's marking the phase of accumulation, as my previous post demonstrated as well. So from anger, the sentiment changes again to depression, which then moves on to the sentiment of disbelief. And so I knew that this pullback that we saw here, the pullback that retested the resistance level, was a phase of disbelief, and that we would see prices rally upwards and see people's sentiment change. And as I anticipated, that was indeed the case. So what we'll do here now is first take a look at the weekly chart for Ethereum's USDT pair or USD pair, and then the daily chart for Ethereum, and then the 4-hour chart for Ethereum, and then move on to Ethereum's Bitcoin pair chart to see where we are at. So on the weekly chart, we can see two really important trend lines that act as support and resistance. So the first trend line starts here, bounces once here, twice here, and then the second trend line also acts as significant support level over here as well, and this also acts as support and resistance. And as we can see for this cycle, these two trend lines remain intact, so we see a rejection here, another rejection here, and then as we break through all-time high levels and pull back about 40%, there was a retest of this trend line where it converged with the previous all-time high level. Then we also have significant support levels that we can identify on the weekly chart with the previous all-time high level at around 1400, and then another support level at around 1000, and then the last phase of very strong support at 350 levels. But I would say that it's very unlikely that we'll see these two levels touch again. And I'd say that the probability of us retesting the previous all-time high level is also very low as well. Based on what the trend lines are showing, while we are in a temporary downtrend, it's more likely that we bounce on these levels to form higher lows and move back up again, if anything. Another thing that's very important to note on the weekly chart are the Fibonacci retracement levels. As I've said in my Bitcoin video, after the price broke through all-time high levels, there weren't any resistance zones that I could actually refer to. So a lot of the resistance zones that I was referring to came from Fibonacci retracements. And as we can see from Ethereum's chart, the 1.414 Fibonacci retracement has served as a strong resistance. We can see that the price has tested above this level but failed to close above this line, which caused a pullback down to the previous all-time high level. So based on the idea that the 414 fib levels are going to serve as strong resistance, we can anticipate a move up and a rejection at around 2.414, which is the $3,300 mark, and then another resistance at the 3.414, which is the $4,600 mark, and then lastly the 4.414, which is around $6,000. So zoomed out, we would see a very, very bullish trend, almost a parabolic trend moving up to the $6,000 mark. Now moving on to the daily chart, we can see that the daily chart doesn't look too bad at all. It's actually forming higher lows, and we can see three trend lines that remain intact for the daily chart. The moving averages are aligned in order with the 20 MA marked in green, the 60 MA marked in orange, and then the 100 MA marked in sky blue, and the Ichimoku cloud also suggests an uptrend. So right now what we can see is that we have broken down through the 0.236 fib support at 1787. We've also managed to fail to hold this support at the 0.382 resistance. We're currently sitting on the 60 moving average, but we could potentially see another correction down to test not only the Ichimoku cloud, but also the upward sloping trend line before we can move back up again. Now, if we were to break through this trend line and form new lows, that would be pretty bad for Ethereum. But given the strong support right now, and given the good news coming up regarding Ethereum's EIP update, I would say that's very improbable. So for those of you who don't know what the EIP update is, it's basically bad for miners, but good for Ethereum holders, and it's good for people who develop on Ethereum because it's an update where people don't have to pay as much in gas fees. So with this update, I would see Ethereum overcoming one of its major pain points. So if we look at the technicals on the daily chart, we can see that these are all at relatively neutral levels. If we move back to the weekly chart to check its technicals here, we can see that the RSI had been overbought and overextended for a while, but then we've corrected down to neutral levels. The MACD is about to form a death cross, but this isn't too worrying considering how it has formed death crosses and golden crosses during phases of accumulation back in 2017 as well during the bull run. So I would say that while it is extremely overextended, there is also a probability of a death cross happening, but that not severely affecting the price action as well. We can then move on to the 4-hour chart, which is quite messy, but bear with me. I'll explain everything to you guys. So this green line right here is the previous all-time high level of 2017, which acts as extremely strong support. And then we have support at 1540, 1590, 1670, and then resistance levels at 1740, 1820, 1870, 1930, and 2020. So what we see here right now on the 4-hour chart is a as actually a bullish divergence with the price forming lower lows and the RSI forming higher lows. And we can see that the MACD has decreasing bearish histograms as well, which indicates a potential golden cross opportunity. Now, the reason I mentioned all these support and resistance lines are because I don't want people to make predictions based on the market movement. I want people to trade based on confirmations that are provided. So your thought process should be more like if X, then Y, instead of, oh, I think this is how the market's going to move because of X, Y, Z. So what I mean by that is, since it's testing the 1670 support right now, a good trader would think based on probabilities. So what he would say is, if it can hold the 1670 support, then Ethereum can test the 1740 resistance. And if it closes above the 1740 resistance, then it can test the 1820 resistance. So that would mean that you're taking it by levels instead of trying to predict exactly what's going to happen to the price and the price action of this asset. We can then move on to Ethereum's chart on the Bitcoin pair, and this is the weekly chart that I'm looking at. So if you guys look closely, these are the two major trend lines for Ethereum's chart on the Bitcoin pair. And if you guys don't know what that means, it's basically if you were to buy Ethereum with Bitcoin, how many Bitcoins would it cost? The price right now for ETH BTC is at 0.03, which means that Ethereum's price is 3% of Bitcoin's price. If this goes up, obviously that means that Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin. So what we're seeing here is how these two major trend lines served as significant resistance right here. We got rejected, but we've managed to break out. And the correction that we're seeing right now is a mere retest of the two trend lines. So this is actually very, very bullish, if anything. Another very important pattern that we need to look at is the Livermore cylinder pattern. This is actually a pattern of accumulation. So if we look at this, this is the accumulation cylinder with a widening mouth. And what happens here is the price consolidates within this broadening cylinder-like pattern, forming higher lows and higher highs until it breaks out to test new highs. And what we're seeing with Ethereum is very similar as well. We've broken out of the major trend line and we are seeing signs of accumulation with this pattern. So if we were to move up, significant resistance levels should be at around 0.4, 0.55, 0.85, and 0.1. So we would see prices potentially touch the 8% and 10% mark. Which means that Ethereum's price should be 8 to 10% of that of Bitcoin. Another really important pattern that needs to be recognized is the reverse head and shoulders pattern that is currently formed on Ethereum's Bitcoin pair. So even based on this pattern, we could see a move up to the 8.5% mark or the 10% mark. Now remember how I said it's very likely that Bitcoin might face resistance at the 74 to 75K resistance based on the monthly chart in my other video. So if we take that calculation and we take the chart we're seeing right here for Ethereum's Bitcoin pair and say that Bitcoin is trading at 74 to 75K and that Ethereum conservatively has hit the 8% mark right here, that would mean that Ethereum should be at around $6,000 based on Ethereum's Bitcoin chart and Bitcoin's chart. So if we go back to Ethereum's weekly chart as well, that also aligns with the 4.414 resistance that I was talking about at the $6,000 range, which is why I came up with a target of 6,000 for Ethereum. Now, of course, the price could overshoot and reach even further, but I would say that from a conservative point, this is a very realistic and bullish case that I could see for Ethereum. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe for more quality content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.